I have the signed paperwork, so I just need you guys to be there to make sure nothing happens. Okay, 45 minutes before I get there. 45 minutes before I show up. So, as always, if you show up before the police, then you have to wait for them before you can even knock on the door. I unfortunately, for some reason, am not even allowed to walk up her driveway because she thinks, uh, whatever it is that she thinks. I'm some murderous, drug abusing. It's so much garbage. It's so much garbage. It's so unbelievable to see how much she has changed whenever she was weak. Whenever she got weak, she didn't have control of her environment anymore. And then she took it in her hands to control not only me, which I didn't realize until a lot later, but everything around us. And then she lost sight of herself. She was so worried about controlling everyone else that she didn't realize what she was doing to herself. I'm not laughing at that. It's a sad thing with America now, but that's a different story, different topic, different subject. So me and my grandmother pull up in her truck, and we sit about about a house down, catty corner from Katie's house, on the other side of the road. Okay, we're waiting for the cop to show up so we can all go up there, and I can get my kids, and we can go back to my house. Man, that storm's getting bad. Okay, 45 minutes before I showed up at Katie's, I called Temple PD and let them know what was going on. They dispatched an officer 45 minutes before I showed up, okay? Me and my grandmother show up right at 6:30 p.m. No cop. We sat there till 7:32 p.m., okay? 7:32. So now it's an hour and 45 minutes before the first cop shows up. And while we are waiting for this cop, Katie and Craig decided it's dinner time. They're taking the kids out to go to eat pizza. The cop's not here yet, okay? I see my kids, and I run up to the street. Hey, Trinity, Daisy. I didn't go on her property. I stood on the city street. I said, "Hey, Trinity, Daisy," and she grabbed them and put them in the car. And Craig grabbed Daisy and put her in the car real quick, shut the doors, and they hopped in the truck and backed out of the driveway. My daughters didn't even get a chance to look. And that type of evil, okay, I have done nothing but teach those two girls the beauty of life. Trinity is the most beautiful painter, and she got it from her imagination. I loved building imagination, especially with Trinity. It was a little harder with Daisy, but we could just go places together, and it was her imagination. It was beautiful. She doesn't have it anymore because Katie got with Craig, and Craig makes about what I was making at HEB. I was making 32 an hour. Do the math. I worked a lot of overtime. But that was at a pivotal point in our family life. Me, Trinity, and Katie. I had told her, I'm going to do whatever we can so I can get our own place. We can get out of my sister's house. And it was, I did that, man. I was the youngest mechanic in HEB, the youngest diesel mechanic in HEB. And within 2 years, I'd climbed farther than 95% of the mechanics that have been there for 30 years, okay? I was going on paid business trips. They paid for hotels. I was the guy that all the other hubs, like South Texas, West, yeah, West or East Texas, I can't remember. Anyways, those mechanics would call me for questions, okay? And I'm new, fairly new. They've been there for years and years, where I just stepped into this, but I had a passion to make sure that my family was taken. I gotta plug this in. It's about to die. I had the passion to make sure my family was taken care of, okay? So, um, like I said earlier, I was a diesel mechanic in the military. However, 18 wheelers is a whole different. It's a whole different ballgame. The electronics alone, in military, don't even have that. Nothing like that. Military electrical is old mentality electrical. When I came to HEB, it was all computer. All these trucks were computerized. They were right at the point at that time, 2012, or yeah, 12, yeah, 2012 is when I started. At that time, the 18 wheelers were already driving themselves overseas, where our cars are doing now, just now. They've already been doing that overseas. So the 18 wheelers are the guinea pigs of all of this. And it starts over in Switzerland, actually. They start with the Volvos over there. They'll test run them for a while. They'll move it into Europe. And then from Europe, it'll come over here to our 18 wheelers. And then from the 18 wheelers, we go to the passenger vehicles. The first 3 months I was with HEB, I read every manual inside of that shop. I would purposely not do oil changes so that I could spend that time, because they wouldn't let us take the books home. It was their property, I guess. So I would, when I started, I would purposely not do oil changes at night. I was by myself at night. I would not do that so that I could spend that full 8 hours reading these manuals, so that I knew from the very front most of that vehicle to the very rear of that vehicle. I knew everything about it. And I did. I very well did. However, the good thing is I've never torn an engine apart. Oh, I'm saying I never did then. I had never torn an engine, a diesel engine, completely apart, put one back together. I'd never taken axles out. So HEB didn't do that. They contracted jobs like that out at that time. So thankfully, I didn't have to do any of that. Now, about 6 months into starting with them, they paid for my vacation down to San Antonio for 3 weeks. They paid for food, hotel, very nice hotel. HEB is a very, very great company. Okay, they are very good people. The atmosphere, the energy, everything about HEB is positive. And I would recommend, if you're starting out as a high school job, or trying to pay for college or something, or even you didn't get the formal training that most diesel techs get, like Wyotech or places like that, go try at HEB. It's a very good company. If you're in Texas, anyways, the 6 months into my job, they sent me down to San Antonio for 3 weeks, and I learned how to do overhead adjustments on the Volvos. Now, the Volvo trucks to HEB, this new computerized technology was fairly new to HEB. I guess. I mean, it was there before I got there, but it wasn't as familiar to all the techs as the old cats. If you know anything about diesel, the C13, the old C15s, the old Detroit even. They had the old Detroit still. And those engines were great for their time. And those techs that HEB still have, are very good on those engines. I was born after those engines. Now I did learn those engines very well. I love the cat engine without the DEF system. I'm getting way sidetracked here, but I'm letting you guys see the real me. Okay, coming into 2018. I don't know if any of you guys know who Gary Vaynerchuk is. Okay, he's a motivational speaker. Now, he's all over the place now, but he started 22 years ago. Right out of high school, he started his career of entrepreneurship. Instead of where most teenagers and college students go out and party most of their life. And this is another thing, man, because even my generation, I grew up and it was all about your parents instilled to you that just go have fun, enjoy life, and when you get out, then really bear down and focus on life and just party your college lives away. And it was just high school was growing, was testing your parents, learning adulthood, girls, boys, puberty, and then there's after high school, and everything after high school has always been instilled to our youth as a party mentality. Now, I was the same way. I grew up the same way. I was taught the same way. When I didn't finish high school, actually. Me and my dad got into a fight, and I actually, for personal reasons, I left. I went and I just dropped out and moved out and went to work for my uncle out in Texas. We was in South Carolina at that time. I dropped out 52 days from my graduation because school, to me, I didn't know school. For me, growing up, I didn't have parents. I didn't have a mom. If you want the story on that, I can tell you. But my dad, I was the oldest kid of 4 kids. So my dad, raising us by himself, he had to work a lot, and literally every day he was not there. And I'm not saying that he was not there for us. I'm saying because he was there for us, he was not around. So I learned at a very young age. In fact, I blew a microwave up at the age of 2 trying to cook for age 5 for my brothers and sisters. It was eggs still in the shell, flour, sugar, syrup, all in a big bowl, one of those big plastic bowls, stirred all over the carpet and the bowl, and I climbed up the cabinets, put the bowl and spoon in the microwave, and turned it on and blew the microwave up. But what I'm getting at is I had to survive. Okay, school was secondhand to me. School was not important because we don't have food on the table, or we don't have water, or we don't have electricity. So I had to do things, that I'm not going to say that I'm not proud of, because it allowed me to become the strength that I am now. Okay? But society needs to understand that not everybody has that rock star life. I didn't have that. I had to do things to make sure that my brothers and sisters ate. That's all I cared about. And movie tickets for my girlfriends. So, I had to learn how to sell things. We won't go into that. It's nothing horrible. But I learned how to sell. I started with Pokemon cards, actually. Pokemon, for some reason, I don't know the game. I really don't even know the gist of how Pokemon works. I just know there's a Pikachu and a at that at that time Charizard or something like that. Big dragon thing. And Pikachu were the most um, desired cards. However, I guess they were at that time was when they kind of first came out. So I want to say I was like 10, but riding the bus to school, we lived way out in the country in Texas, so it was like an hour and a half drive on the bus to school. I would notice which kids were actively divulging their entire existence into this game, this card game. And so I would steal other kids' cards who were not actively engaged and were just part of the trend. I would steal their cards a little at a time and sell them to the kids who really wanted them. And that was the start of my entrepreneurship. But I'm not trying to make that a funny situation. I know a lot of you are going to, how horrible. But you weren't in that situation, so you can't say how horrible. Nobody can ever say how horrible, because by saying how horrible means you were never in that situation. So you don't understand how bad it hurts to not eat for a day. How smelly you get for not showering for a week because we don't have water. Because my dad chose to take this paycheck and make sure we could have ramen noodles for the whole week instead of paying the water. Or it's going to be a cold week, so let's just keep the heat on. Gas heat. Who cares about the water? At least we'll be, warm. And I'm not gonna lie, it sucked. It sucked. There's a lot of times that it was cold. I remember my sister she got a parakeet, it's like a little parrot bird or something. But they're small and they're very colorful. And it was during the winter when she got it. But she loved it. I can't remember the dang name of that bird. It was like Star or Starlight or something like that. But it was a blue bird and it was white, had spark. I don't know. But we didn't have the heat on. It was wintertime. And when we didn't have the heat on, we would all sleep in the living room under one, together so that we could stay warm. And my dad would sleep in his room, but the kids would sleep in the living room floor on a pile of blankets. But we got up one morning to get dressed, and I remembered, man, I hated getting up from those blankets. It's so cold. I wish I knew from the military then. But yeah, it was cold. So to go from the living room to it was an old house. It was an old country house that our great grandfather had built back in the 1800s. So it wasn't insulated like modern houses. It was a nice house out in the country, but it wasn't insulated. Anyways, we got up to go to school one morning, and we go into the room, and during winter, well, every night you're supposed to put like a blanket over the bird cages so they can go to sleep and stay warm. We get ready for school, go to school. I guess my sister had forgot to even take the blanket off. Of course, when you're cold, you're not thinking about much else than getting warm. But we go to school, come back home, and she's all excited to go talk to her bird, and she pulls the thing off, and it's just stiff, sitting on the perch. It's just sitting there, and she's trying to talk to her, and it's not moving, and whistle, and it's not doing. It's just perfectly still. I was like, whoa, that's weird. and we opened the cage, but my dad had found it before we did that day. I don't know why he left it there, but the bird had frozen that night. It got too cold and it froze to death. But that's what I lived with. So for me to tell you this story, understand that there's ways of life that maybe you don't know a lot about, and you can't judge those people, and you really can't judge any person for anything, because you're not that person. You're not walking those shoes. You're not seeing what he sees or she sees. You're not that person. You can only take control of yourself. Okay, so when I say that I had to do things to make sure that me and my brothers were fed, just accept it as a child I understood survival, and I used that in a way, a good way, to take care of my family. A lot of kids can grow up the same way and learn that survival